Exposed, the amazing truth of a hidden connection that transformed their lives forever. Thunder rumbled above the small Oklahoma town, rain pattering fiercely against the roof of Sarah's childhood home as she sorted through the remnants of her late mother's life. Dust floated like memories in the air, each breath reminding her of the exhaustion tugging at her bones. As a 33-year-old nurse, the weight of her responsibilities pressed heavily, a single mother juggling double shifts and 2 spirited children. But what cut deeper was the gnawing sense of inadequacy that overshadowed her relentless work and boundless love. Did she have what it took to create a brighter life for them? The clock ticked incessantly, a reminder of her racing heart and insecurities haunting her every decision. Her fingers brushed over an old trunk, a vintage relic of times long past. Curiosity mixed with trepidation flooded through her as she lifted its lid. Tucked inside was a leather-bound journal, its spine cracked with age. Each page revealed beautiful sketches and poetic entries, gifts of artistry squashed beneath the weight of life's burdens. As she flipped through the journal, old fears whispered in her mind, echoing her own battle against suffocating doubt. Could she really pursue a dream that once burned bright but had long been extinguished? Sarah's gaze lingered on a self-portrait her mother had drawn, a woman strong yet vulnerable. Tears of unrecognizable emotions welled up. There it was, this unspoken connection to her past that hinted at an unfulfilled legacy. A quiver curled deep in her chest, igniting an impulse within her to paint once more. Memories of color brushed across her mind, back to a time when dreams felt tangible. Yet with the thought came paralyzing fear. Was she truly talented, or had her mother merely wished for a reality that never took form? Days turned to weeks, and Sarah found herself standing before a blank canvas. Heart racing, she dipped her brush in vibrant paint, a hesitant flick of color spilling hope onto the surface. Along the way, a chance encounter with Tom, a passionate art teacher, pierced through her fog of hopelessness. His laughter filled the air between them, igniting a once-lost spark of creativity. Yet happiness became bittersweet. The heart of her family back in town festered with jealousy, hastily dispatching messages concerning her mother's legacy. They spoke of dollar signs, heirlooms rattled like chains in the air. Caught between familial loyalty and owning her mother's artistry, Sarah's emotional turmoil deepened. What right did she have to stand against them for something she had tried to bury? A local gallery exhibit loomed in the distance, an opportunity, a risk, and yet the overwhelming pressure of revealing herself left her breathless. Each brushstroke became a battle as her insecurities clawed at the edges of her mind, squeezing her heart in agonizing grips. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The days spiraled toward the exhibit. Each moment weighed heavier, each heartbeat echoed uncertainty. Sarah could hardly stand as messages from her family punctured her resolve. Think of what could be gained, they warned, dismantling her dreams into mere transactions. The question clawed at her. Should she cower into submission or embrace the promise her mother had long envisioned? As the date approached, her children's faith in her seeped into her very being, like sun through the rain. But then doubt crept in uninvited, whispering treacherous thoughts in her ear. Could she truly rise? The weight of the past bore down, thick and immovable. In the heart of this storm, she stood on a precipice, wavering, ready to confront both her lineage and herself. Would she embrace the artist within, or fall beneath the relentless tide ready to swallow her whole? The answer lay in the trembling balance, pulsing ever closer as the world around her blurred in tension. The rain had finally started to let up, sluggish and uncertain like Sarah's resolve. A glimmer of sunlight peeked through the retreating storm clouds, casting weak shadows across her tiny workspace. In the quiet aftermath, her studio felt more like a sanctuary than a battleground, yet anxiety nagged at her like a persistent headache. The opening of the gallery lingered in her consciousness like a looming deadline, one she could not escape. Standing in front of her latest canvas, Sarah hesitated. Vibrant splashes filled the surface, but each color seemed to mock her doubts. The pressing question became monstrous. Was this true artistry, or simply a folly, a childish attempt to play at her mother's legacy? She cast her gaze away, not wanting the hues to betray her insecurities. How was she to convince anyone, let alone herself, that she was worthy of following the creative path her mother had paved? Over the week leading to the exhibit, small joys flared like fireflies in the dusk. Tom's encouraging words acted as a warm balm against her fears. Each lesson brought forth powerful insights, peeling back layers of hopelessness that had cloaked her spirit. "Art is a reflection of your truth, Sarah," he would often say, nudging her toward the emotional depths she had buried. His insights echoed in her mind long after the paint had dried. Yet here stood the stark reality of doubt, rearing its head at the worst moments. In a moment of impulsive clarity, she picked up her phone, fingers trembling as she scrolled through her family's messages, thick with greed and expectation. They had painted her mother's artistry as a mere transaction, a gold mine waiting to be uncovered. Memories flooded her. Family gatherings colored with laughter and pain, where her mother's dreams were often stifled, coated with the family's unyielding pragmatism. The remembrance stung. It felt like a betrayal to the very essence her mother had imbued into every stroke of paint and whispered lullaby. Today was more than an exhibit. It was a transformation, a confrontation. But confrontations demanded courage, and her heart raced with the thought. Would saying yes to her art mean saying no to her family? Each brushstroke had become a manifestation of her rebellion, capturing not only the essence of art, but the battle within her very psyche. Each stroke was a step toward autonomy, and uncertainty knotted her stomach. Quietly she whispered to herself, "I am more than my mother's legacy. I am my own." It was a fragile mantra, yet it held weight as she faced the outcome of her bravery. Returning to the canvas, she dipped her paintbrush in purple, careful, yet resolute. This piece would be a declaration, not merely of her art, but of her identity. Shifting with renewed energy, she splashed colors with newfound conviction, forging them into sweeping movements that came alive beneath her hand. The connection deepened. She felt her mother's presence guiding her, more a mentor than a ghost weighing her down. It was not merely a legacy, but a river flowing through her, intertwined with her journey. Emotions swelled, cascading into vivid hues as she poured her truth onto the canvas. As the strokes flourished, a knock at the door startled her. It resonated like a thunderclap, sending a rush of dread through her veins. Her family members were eager to discuss their plans regarding the evening, yearning to dictate how she should proceed. The moment of confrontation had arrived. With resolve hardening beneath her skin, Sarah stepped toward the door, heart pounding like war drums. The air was electric, crackling with potential. Would she yield to their pressure, or assert her right to stand firmly in her own skin as an artist? As the door creaked open and they stood before her, a flood of determination surged through her. The true battle was about to begin. Sarah opened the door, the hinges protesting as her family's expectations barreled into the room like a gust of wind. Their faces, drawn tight with purpose, flickered between excitement and entitlement. In that instant, she felt stripped bare under their gaze. But beneath the surface, a new strength simmered, igniting a fierce resolve within her. "Sarah, we need to talk about tonight," her father said, his tone flat as if the words were already rehearsed. His eyes searched hers for compliance. She took a breath, grounding herself. Was this the moment she would allow their script to dictate her narrative once more? The tension coiled in her gut, wrapping tighter with every second that passed. "Actually, I want to discuss my work first," she interjected, surprising even herself with the steadiness in her voice. It wasn't a matter of merely presenting her art. It was about asserting her autonomy. "Your art?" her mother scoffed, adopting that familiar dismissive tone that had haunted Sarah throughout her childhood. "This is not the time. You have a gallery showing tonight. People are expecting a show, not distractions." "Art is not a distraction. It's part of who I am," Sarah challenged, her heart racing. She stood her ground, images of her colorful canvases rushing through her mind like a tidal wave of memories, of struggles and joys, the fight to create something genuine. "Look, sweetie," her father softened, but she saw the hidden undertone. "We just want you to make a good impression. Your mother's legacy. It's too important. It's what everyone will be expecting." Sarah's heart twisted at the word legacy, entangled with expectations she had inherited like a burden. Who they thought she should be danced mockingly at the edges of her aspirations, threatening to swallow her alive. This was not about them. It was about her truth. Tonight isn't a reflection of your expectations, she asserted, trying to maintain her composure. It's my chance to show that I'm not just following a path, I'm carving my own. Each piece represents my journey, not just my mother's. Silence enveloped the room, a weighty pause that felt like standing at the edge of a precipice. For the first time, her family seemed taken aback by her candor. They exchanged glances, confusion sprouting in the air around them. Sarah, you need to understand, her mother finally spoke, her voice trembling slightly. This art, you're walking away from everything we've built, from what your mother wanted for you. At the mention of her mother, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. That tug of sorrow felt crushing, but layered within it was a flicker of clarity. Her mother's aspirations had intertwined with her own heart, not as chains but as ancient roots that could fuel her growth. She wasn't abandoning her mother, she was honoring her legacy through her unique expression. Maybe what she wanted was for me to find my own voice, to break free from the mold you all have created, Sarah replied, each word spilling out faster than she could second-guess herself. It felt reckless, liberating. Her family's expressions shifted from indignation to something softer. Pain, maybe, or regret. Mom's eyes glistened, reflecting unspoken fears and hopes. Sarah felt a crack forming in their carefully constructed walls of expectation. Change is hard, but I'm ready to face it, she continued, her gaze unwavering. I won't shrink down to fit into a box, not anymore. She sensed the tide within her cresting, a wave of liberation stirred by a decision that felt monumental. The room hung in an unsteady stillness, each heart in it thrumming with the consequences of her words. Would they rebel against this newfound Sarah, or would they learn to embrace her? The silence stretched, and yet she felt lighter, as if the air itself was shifting. But just as resolve laced her heart, an unfamiliar dread seeped into her consciousness. What would be the fallout from asserting herself? Would her family retaliate? Or was this a bridge toward understanding? Both possibilities loomed like twin specters in the background of her mind, overshadowing her newfound determination. A new knock at the door interrupted the moment, sharper this time, as if the universe had another announcement to make. It felt ominous, and she wondered whether it marked hope or disaster. With her family suspended in anticipation, Sarah hesitated for just a moment, uncertainty creeping back in. She opened the door, ready for whatever lay beyond, her journey once again in the balance. The door creaked open, revealing a figure Sarah hadn't expected. Alex, her closest friend from art school, stood framed in the dim hallway, breathless and wide-eyed. His presence was an unexpected soothe to Sarah's swirling turmoil, a reminder of the person whose opinion had always been rooted in authenticity rather than expectation. Hey, He trailed off, noting the tension in the room. Am I interrupting something? No, Alex, come in, Sarah urged, forcing a smile despite the uncertainty lingering inside her. She stepped aside, offering him space to enter, but also subtly distancing herself from the stifling energies of her family. As he stepped in, the palpable tension crackled and sparked anew. Your family, they look intense, he muttered, his voice laced with concern. What's going on? She hesitated, weighing her words, feeling the need to summarize her recent awakening. I stood up for myself. I'm tired of being defined by everyone else's expectations, especially about my art. He swept his gaze over the untouched canvas by the window, reflecting the tumult of her thoughts. You're finally trying to embrace who you are, he stated, and for a moment, hope flickered in her chest. But it was quickly tempered by the shadow of doubt that had lingered since her confrontation. Maybe, but what if standing up to them means losing them? Sarah's voice trembled, unraveling the certainty she had built. What if they can't accept this version of me? Alex stepped closer, a thoughtful frown crossing his face. You're forging your path, but it's not just about them accepting you, it's also about how you accept yourself. Have you given yourself the same grace? His question hung in the air, challenging and piercing. In this moment, Sarah confronted a gnawing inner dialogue. Had she truly accepted the artist within? Or had she only convinced herself that asserting independence was the same as self-acceptance? She was tired of her thoughts being steeped in possibility instead of action. Was it time to fully embrace her truth? Realization dawned. She had spent countless hours perfecting her craft, but was yet to fully exhibit who she was as a person. She felt like a puppet, dancing between the expectations of those she loved and the dreams she desired to manifest. Was she truly the artist if she couldn't even stand firm in her own identity? Alex nudged her shoulder gently, pulling her from the whirlpool of self-doubt. No matter what happens, you need to trust that your art will speak for you, as long as it comes from your heart. It's raw and unfiltered, just like you. His words ignited a spark within her, reminding her of the way the brushes felt in her hands, the colors that transformed mere canvas into echoes of her soul. Light shimmered in her chest as she considered a transformation not just in her art, but in her life. "Are you ready to show them who you really are?" Alex asked, his voice low but charged with urgency. "Because this moment, it can redefine everything." Sarah glanced at her family, still aboard their vessel of expectations, but now they seemed less as tyrants and more as witnesses to her metamorphosis. Doubt battled within her, but as she took in each familiar face, she realized her true challenge. They needed to see her authenticity, not the semblance of compliance they had come to expect. "Tonight, I'll let my work speak," she vowed, her voice gaining strength with every syllable. No more wanderings in shadows, no more hiding before their expectations. With newfound determination, Sarah faced her family, the resolve in her heart blazing like a beacon. For the first time, she felt the distinction between fear and courage, and it strengthened her spirit. "I'm ready to create a new narrative, not just for me, but for all of us." As she turned away from Alex, a knock echoed through the room once more, this time more insistent and filled with urgency. Questions fluttered through her mind, unraveling her concentration. Who could it be now? And would this next visitor challenge the burgeoning independence she was striving to claim? It often felt as if the universe had its own narrative thread ready to pull tight, and Sarah wondered what twist awaited them next. The knock reverberated, a sharp interruption that sliced through Sarah's reawakening, drawing all eyes to the door. Her heart raced, both with anticipation and an unsettling trepidation. Who stood on the other side, looming as a potential catalyst or a deterrent to her burgeoning independence? Before she could fully ponder it, the door swung open, revealing a man Sarah had almost forgotten existed, her art professor, Mr. Davis. His presence, previously a distant influence in her academic journey, now felt like a charge of electricity coursing through the air. He stepped inside, his brow furrowed, eyes scanning the room as he took in the tension. "Mind if I join?" he asked, his voice steadied against the whirlwind of emotions around them. There was something about his authoritative yet compassionate demeanor that prompted immediate respect. Sure," Sarah managed, her voice barely above a whisper, as she motioned for him to enter. Her family remained silent, their gazes shifting between the unexpected visitor and her. Mr. Davis wasted no time. "Sarah, I heard about your recent gallery submission. You challenged the traditional format, didn't you?" The way he spoke, direct and insightful, ignited an ember of pride within her, but it quickly flickered under the weight of self-doubt. "Yes, but," she started, wrestling with the implications of her choice. "Let me finish. You displayed a rawness in your work that was both compelling and honestly vulnerable." There was a glimmer of admiration in his eyes, a reflection of Sarah herself that felt empowering. That's not easy to achieve, especially when you're exploring the deeper parts of yourself. Her lips twitched into a tentative smile, but doubt crept back in. What if my family can't see that? What if they dismiss everything I've created? Sensing her inner conflict, Mr. Davis stepped closer, his gaze steady and unwavering. Art doesn't require validation from others to hold value. It exists independently, manifesting truth and authenticity. The beauty lies in your ability to express what you feel. The room fell silent, and Sarah focused on his words, absorbing them like a parched ground soaking in rain. She thought about the modifications she often made, her brushstrokes tampered with for approval, the colors dulled to fit neatly within someone else's expectations. What if that truth isn't what they want to hear? Sarah's voice trembled, reluctance pouring from every syllable. Then let them confront the reality of their expectations. You're not responsible for their reactions, only for your own honesty, he replied, his tone firm yet encouraging. With every word he spoke, Sarah felt the bindings of past fears loosening. She glanced at Alex, who stood at the back, nodding with encouragement in his eyes. The combination of her professor's wisdom and her friend's steadfast support propelled her thoughts further. Determined now, she met Mr. Davis's gaze head-on. "You're right. I've been crafting my art in the shadows of others, not just my family, but the art world itself. I'm ready to stand out and stand firm." "Good," he nodded, a smile growing on his face. "Expose the layers of your truth and watch how they resonate." Just then, another knock assaulted the room, louder and more impatient than before. Tension gripped Sarah again, but this time it felt laced with anticipation rather than dread. Who else could possibly disrupt this moment? "Stay here," she instructed, clenching her fists as she approached the door. Her heart drummed in her ears. Whatever awaited her on the other side, she was ready to face it, and with it, her full self. As she gripped the doorknob, doubt flickered but did not hold her. It felt insignificant against her newfound clarity. What awaited her beyond? Would it be a new ally or another challenge? Sarah took a deep breath, her pulse quickening as she prepared herself to confront whatever revelation lay behind that door. The door swung open with a creak that felt like the world standing still in anticipation. Sarah blinked as she processed the figure that stood there. It was Emily, a fellow student from her art class, but not someone she had particularly connected with before. Yet there was an intensity in Emily's expression that immediately stirred Sarah's curiosity. "Sarah, I need to talk to you, now." Emily's urgency left no room for pleasantries. Okay?" Sarah hesitated, glancing back at Mr. Davis, who had crossed his arms, observing with keen interest, perhaps sensing the significance of this unexpected encounter. As Emily stepped inside, her eyes darted around the room, eventually landing on Alex. The moment hung in the air, and Sarah felt an uncertain weight settle on her shoulders. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Have you heard about the undercurrents in the art community lately?" Emily didn't waste time. "There are whispers about the gallery you submitted to, and it's bigger than you think. People are talking, not just about your piece, but about you." The information sent a rush of adrenaline through Sarah. "What do you mean? Why would anyone talk about me?" Emily leaned closer, lowering her voice. "They're intrigued by your approach to rawness, your honesty. It's resonating, but there's more. A few influential curators are keeping an eye on you, and they're planning to visit the gallery soon." Sarah's heart raced, excitement mingling with fear. "Why didn't I know about this? I thought my work would be cast aside." "Because you've been hiding," Emily shot back, fierceness igniting her words. "You don't realize your potential, Sarah. You were working in the shadows, but now you have a chance to step into the light." Suddenly, every moment spent watering down her artistic impulses rushed back to her. The brushstrokes altered to fit someone else's vision, the colors muted to pacify others' expectations. A flood of recognition coursed through her, and she saw her artwork not as a collection of pieces to be critiqued, but as an extension of her soul. "I want to stand firm in who I am," Sarah said, meeting Emily's gaze. "But I'm scared of what might happen if they don't understand me." Emily nodded, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "They might not understand at first, but consider this. Do you want to dilute your truth for their comfort? Or do you want to create a ripple that could change the narrative?" Mr. Davis leaned forward, clearly interested in the dynamic unfolding before him. "This is a pivotal moment, Sarah. You're at a crossroads where you can choose to unveil your true self, potentially transforming not only your own journey, but also impacting the art community around you." The weight of his words pressed on her, an internal conflict churned within. This was more than just art now. It was a testament to her growth, a challenge that could redefine her existence. She inhaled deeply, fighting the swell of anxiety rising in her chest. "I have to pursue this," she declared, her voice gaining strength. "If Emily is right, and my work can make waves, I'll embrace that. I'll risk it all to be seen for who I am and what I create." "Then you must prepare," Mr. Davis interjected, his demeanor serious yet encouraging. "Focus on refining your message, ensuring that it encapsulates your authenticity. You must step into this opportunity without reservation. The gravity of the situation hung heavy, yet beneath it all was a current of determination forming within Sarah. She was ready to shed the layers of doubt that had long constrained her. "Can I count on you to support me?" she asked Emily, her heart racing with newfound resolve. "Always," Emily replied, her eyes alight with a fierce belief. "Let's get to work." As the four of them huddled in the small room, enveloped by the weight of passion and ambition, Sarah realized that this was just the beginning. A path had opened before her, but it was fraught with uncertainty, requiring her to confront the expectations of those around her. Could she truly expose her raw self to the world? She took a moment to appreciate the potential ahead, knowing the onus was on her to ignite the fire that would fuel this coming transformation. With determination basking in her veins, Sarah felt the anticipation swell once more. But would she be able to withstand the scrutiny that loomed ahead, and at what cost to her heart? The unknown beckoned, and she grasped the moment with conviction, a fire sparking within her. The door to opportunity had opened wide, but the true challenge lay ahead. She would have to step onto a stage made of hope and fear, her heart unguarded. And as she prepared to face whatever would come next, a chilling thought settled in her mind. What if the very thing she sought to express was exactly what they wanted to silence? The bustle of art supplies and the scent of turpentine hung in the air as Sarah returned to her shared studio space the following morning. She glanced around the room, now intimate with her surroundings, and sensed the collective energy of creativity. With each brushstroke, she felt the weight of her recent revelations spur her on. There was no hiding anymore. Determined, Sarah laid out her materials meticulously. She glanced at her half-finished canvas, its once muted colors beginning to leap to life in her mind. No longer would she be an artist confined by the walls of self-doubt and fear. She was ready to unleash the rawness Emily had ignited within her. Sitting cross-legged before the stark white canvas, she remembered Emily's urgency, the way her voice reverberated in her thoughts like rolling thunder. Could she really carve a niche, capture the vulnerability of human experience, and share it with the world? A convoluted mix of anticipation and anxiety spiraled within her. Taking a deep breath, Sarah grabbed her brush. The first stroke was tentative, a whisper of color that signified her rebirth. Then, as if pushing through a dam, her brush became an extension of her being, and she painted furiously, bold strokes, wild movements. She poured herself onto the canvas, fear intermingling with determination. Hours passed in a blur, the outside world fading as she transformed her grief, joy, and uncertainty into something tangible. It was liberating, exhilarating yet terrifying. This visceral expression, she thought, was what her art had long been lacking. And with every color she layered, every shape she molded, clarity began to emerge between her chaotic emotions. Yet the implications of what lay ahead loomed. As she worked, a creeping realization settled. How would critics perceive this authenticity? Questions swirled. Would her vulnerability manifest as strength, or would it expose her to judgment? As she deliberated, the door swung open and Alex walked in, breaking her concentration. He observed her for a moment, his eyes scanning the chaos of colors. "What are you creating?" he asked, genuine curiosity lacing his tone. Sarah hesitated, wondering if sharing her vision would open the floodgates to scrutiny. "It's different," she finally replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm trying to let go of everything I thought I had to be." Alex's brow furrowed as he absorbed her words. "You know, sometimes the scariest pieces evoke the strongest reactions. You're taking a risk." "That's the point," she replied, a faint tremor of conviction shaping her voice. "I can't hold back anymore. I want to be seen for who I am, not who I think everyone wants me to be." He stood silent for a moment, watching as Sarah's anxiety started to intertwine with a different emotion, hope. "What if they don't get it?" she questioned, more to herself than to him, anxiety creeping back into her chest. "Then you'll educate them through your art," he asserted, stepping closer. "You have a voice, Sarah, and it's time to use it." The seriousness of his words echoed in the studio, striking a chord within her. As she returned her gaze to the canvas, her inner demon challenged her. The stark truth remained. Either she chose to withdraw into the shadows or step boldly into the unknown, unguarded and fearless. Each brushstroke felt like a declaration, a step toward freeing herself from the expectations she had been shackled by for too long. A surge of adrenaline filled her as she created, the fear of judgment swirling with the promise of liberation. The more she painted, the more she understood that being authentic was inherently bound to being vulnerable. As she neared the completion of her piece, a sudden thought struck her. Would revealing her true self actually change the paradigm she feared? There was only one way to find out. Her heart raced in tandem with her thoughts as she pieced together her next steps. She resolved to invite others to witness her transformation, to share her narrative in the most intimate way, the unveiling of her work. The thought sent a jolt through her like a bolt of lightning. Would she have the courage to let others see not just her art, but her? The echoes of her past fears whispered insistently, but somewhere within the din, her newfound conviction pulsed with urgency. In that moment of clarity, she felt the slim line divide pity from empowerment. The stakes were higher now, and the exposure would be raw, but embracing vulnerability might be the key to her freedom. With the final stroke applied, Sarah stepped back to survey her work, and an unexpected fear surged through her. What if this was too much? The question loomed like a shadow, but amid the thrill of creation, another thought flickered to life. What if this very moment was the gateway to her true self becoming unmasked? As the weight of her decision settled in, she sensed that the forthcoming weeks held unimaginable promise and potential, a clash of ambition on the horizon. Would the gallery embrace her raw and unfiltered message, or would it shatter her? In a moment wrapped in uncertainty and resolve, Sarah realized she was ready to confront her worst fears, her heart open and unguarded. As she stood in front of her creation, an electrifying tension filled the air. The door to the future had creaked ajar, and an irresistible question lingered. What awaited her beyond that threshold? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow through the studio's window panes, Sarah stood before her completed canvas, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. She had poured her soul onto that fabric, and the vivid colors mirrored the tumult within her, a canvas that spoke of both struggle and freedom. But the time for mere creation was over. Now she had to prepare for the confrontation that awaited her at the gallery. Sarah spent the next few days in a frenzy of activity. Invitations went out to friends, fellow artists, and even a few critics she admired. Each name scattered across the list stirred up a different cocktail of anticipation and dread. Would they see the depth of her intention, or would her exposure be met with indifference, or worse, disdain? The fear started as a low thrum but quickly escalated into a full crescendo in her mind. To calm her nerves, she sought refuge in late-night walks around the neighborhood. The streetlights flickered like stars trapped on an asphalt canvas, their glow comforting yet starkly illuminating her thoughts. Every time she passed familiar faces, she felt a jolt of anxiety. What did they truly know about her? Had they ever looked past her polite smile to see the passionate artist within? Back in the studio one evening, Sarah found herself staring at her canvas again, contemplating its meaning with fresh eyes. Its vibrancy filled her with an exhilarating blend of pride and vulnerability. Each time she approached it, she saw different facets of herself laid bare. But what would the world see? As the gallery opening drew near, her routines shifted. No longer could she deny her humanity, that intricate blend of persistence and fear. With every brushstroke, she'd embraced vulnerability, intertwining it with her identity, yet now it felt like her very essence awaited judgment. Eclipsed in this dance of creation were questions about authenticity and public perception. Would her art change the hearts of her viewers, or would they toss aside the deeper meanings, content with superficial interpretations? Alex, ever attuned to her turmoil, made frequent visits to her studio, providing grounding discussions. His words acted as an anchor, tethering her to the core of her artistic vision. "Remember," he'd say, leaning against the doorframe, "art is subjective, but your story behind it, that's universal." One evening, as Sarah prepared to finalize her thoughts for a small speech, she received a surprising email from a noted critic who agreed to attend her opening. Confidence and trepidation danced chaotically within her. The weight of expectation culminated at that moment. What if he dismissed her work as not worthy of discussion? A voice in her head scoffed, presenting the worst-case scenario. Yet deep down, another fought back. What if her truth resonated, igniting conversations long overdue? Nervous energy translated into meticulous planning. The night before the opening, she rehearsed her words in front of the bathroom mirror, chasing away lingering doubts. Each recitation transformed hesitation into conviction, empowerment flooding through her. "This is my journey," she told herself, "and every word I speak will reflect that." As she finally stood before the gallery doors on opening night, a familiar mix of excitement and fear churned within her. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. The energy was palpable. She felt the weight of every decision she had made, every fear she had conquered to walk this path, lead her to this very moment. The door swung open and guests filtered in, their faces illuminated with curiosity. Sarah stepped forward, confronting the myriad of emotions clawing to escape. Perhaps this night would not just be an introduction of her artwork, but a declaration of who she had become. Would they understand the vulnerability woven into each layer of paint? Was she brave enough to open the floodgates to her truth enough to let them see it? One by one, she greeted friends and strangers alike, gathering courage from each interaction, the unfamiliar feeling of being vulnerable taking root within her. As conversations sparked around her, she realized that the question she had poised for herself transformed. It became not merely about judgment, but rather about connection. Standing amidst the crowd, she took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever reactions awaited her. But her resolve was soon tested when she spotted the critic alone in the corner, his gaze sharply fixed on her piece. The moment had arrived. The pivotal test had begun. Would his recognition of her vulnerability replace her insecurities with affirmation, or fiercely amplify her fear? The culmination of her journey, all those brushstrokes and late-night contemplations, now hinged on a single reaction as she approached him. Will he see the true essence of her artistic identity, or would the barrier between the real Sarah and the artist be impenetrable? Sarah's heartbeat reverberated in her ears as she steeled herself for the first interaction. Approaching the critic, a man known for his sharp insights and equally sharp tongue, her palms grew slick with sweat. This wasn't merely an introduction. It was an initiation into a world where her vulnerabilities could either shine brightly or be cast aside as insignificant. "Mr. Davison," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm Sarah. Thank you for coming tonight." He turned his gaze from her canvas to her, his eyes scrutinizing her face as if searching for the artist behind the art. "A pleasure, Sarah," he replied, his tone neutral yet laden with expectancy. "Your work is quite provocative." Provocative. It was a word that both thrilled and terrified her. What did it mean in his context? Was it a compliment or a veiled critique? She leaned into the uncertainty, determined to embrace whatever meaning it held. "Thank you," she replied, forcing a smile that felt more tenuous than genuine. "The piece reflects my struggles with identity and self-acceptance. I wanted to convey that rawness." His brow furrowed ever so slightly, an imperceptible signal that could either herald interest or disdain. "Rawness can be inviting or off-putting. How do you reconcile the two?" The question struck deeper than she had anticipated. With every answer she provided, the line of her artistic identity felt like fragile glass, capable of shattering or reflecting light depending on her approach. "It can be both," she said, seeking her own truth. "And I think that's the beauty of art. It initiates a dialogue. I aim to connect with those who experience the same uncertainty." Davison's gaze shifted back to her canvas, his expression inscrutable. Silence enveloped them as the crowd swirled around. Sarah felt the pressure mounting, her confidence teetering on the edge of vulnerability. Before she could ask him about his views on her work, he spoke again. "Every artist has their hidden compartments. What's yours?" She hesitated, caught between the urge to open up and the instinct to protect the nascent parts of herself still shrouded in doubt. Here was her moment, to either declare herself boldly or retreat behind the fortress of self-doubt. He watched her, an inquisitive look encouraging her to continue. "I've struggled with feeling unworthy," she said at last, the candor surprising even herself. "That notion of being an imposter, as if I'm playing at being an artist rather than truly being one." His demeanor shifted, the critique faded momentarily, replaced by an acknowledgement of shared humanity. "Imposter syndrome," he mused, "a common foe among creatives. You aren't alone in that." Tentatively, she leaned in, curious. "You feel it too?" He nodded, his eyes softening. Even after years in this field, it's a relentless foe. But the beauty lies in the struggle, don't you think? Art emerges from the fight. Sarah felt a flicker of hope amid the tumult within her. Here lay a connection forming, authentic and unguarded. It felt as if she were breaking free from a cage of self-doubt, underscoring the idea that every artist existed in a realm of vulnerability, regardless of their status. The conversation shifted, flowing from her journey to his experiences, fostering a bond grounded not in critique, but understanding. She refocused on her motivations, settling into the space where her artistic identity could breathe. But the night was still young, and with each interaction that unfolded around her, Sarah sensed an inevitable truth. The challenge was far from over. As more guests approached her canvas, she prepared to engage, disentangling her heart from fear and redefining it through connection. Yet a lone voice, sharper than the rest, pierced the atmosphere, capturing her attention and halting her momentary progress. A fellow artist, brimming with confidence yet shrouded in rivalry, approached, a pointed expression on his face. "Sarah, it's brave of you to show this, but don't you think it's too personal for public consumption?" The questioning nature of his words shifted her focus back to a familiar anxiety, a haunting whisper of self-doubt that threatened to resurface. Would she succumb to the weight of another's judgment? Or would she confront this challenge head-on, fortified by the dialogues and connections she had cultivated? As she stood at the crossroads of her emotional landscape, the tension surged. Did she have the courage to redefine her narrative in that moment? Or would she cling to the shackles of insecurity? The night's real test loomed before her, compelling her to choose, retreat into silence, or boldly declare her truth. The air felt thick with anticipation, and Sarah knew she must respond, not just to him, but to her own evolving identity. The stakes were rising. Would she harness the confidence she had just unearthed, or would she retreat into the shadows once more? The culmination of her journey hinged on this pivotal moment, a reckoning that could unlock new paths or reaffirm outdated beliefs. What choice lay ahead, and what revelations awaited on the other side? As the evening wore on, Sarah relished the fluctuating energy in the gallery, alive with conversations resonating with raw honesty. Letting herself breathe, she felt the pressing weight of expectations shift from her shoulders. She was no longer at the mercy of her family's shadow. She stood firm in her truth, ready to embrace the unknown. Somewhere in the background, laughter bubbled, interwoven with thoughtful exchanges. Her heart swelled with pride as she overheard snippets of recognition about her piece, Untethered, which had become a symbol of her transformation. People were connecting, drawing parallels, and sharing their own stories of struggle and liberation. Yet, a familiar anxiety flickered at the edges, like a phantom whispering insecurities back into her ears. When the confrontational artist stepped forward, that anxiety sharpened into a tangible blade. "Don't you think it's too personal for public consumption?" he sneered, a challenge veiled in his bravado. Taking a deep breath, Sarah's resolve ignited. "Art isn't just for the audience, it's an intimate dialogue," she responded slowly, channeling the confidence that had surged within her since painting Untethered. "It's about vulnerability, and if I can share my journey, maybe it can resonate with someone else. Maybe it can inspire them to face their own fears." His expression faltered for a moment, intrigued but reluctant. "You think exposing personal pain opens doors?" "I believe it does," she affirmed. "Hiding behind a polished facade only serves to disconnect us from each other. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a bridge. It's what humanizes us." The atmosphere shifted, and in that moment, Sarah felt a ripple of understanding reverberate through the crowd. This was more than an unveiling of her canvas. It was the unveiling of the self she had cautiously nurtured for years. A small group nearby paused, their ears attuned to her words. The initial murmur of judgment began to soften, morphing instead to curiosity. Sarah's confidence burgeoned, buoyed by the acknowledgement. She wasn't just defending herself, she was crafting her narrative. The artist's face hardened again, yet uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "But what if your truth isn't accepted?" "That's a risk I'm willing to take," she smiled, her chin lifted defiantly. "This isn't just about acceptance, it's about authenticity. If they don't see my work for what it is, then they're missing the point of art altogether." The tension palpably eased, and whispers of agreement began to shift through the throng. She sensed the dynamics changing, her voice weaving a new narrative into the fabric of the evening. A nearby critic caught her eye and nodded, appreciating her rebuttal. "You aren't shy about showcasing your edges, Sarah. That's brave. It's a representation that is all too rare nowadays." With each breath she took, her foundation solidified. It echoed the exciting fear she had once narrowly avoided, the exhilarating fear that came from stepping into her full power. "I've realized that walking the path of vulnerability not only liberates me, it also provides a voice to countless others who hide in shadows." The artist faltered, stepping back as the crowd began to move forward, inviting dialogue about her work. Sarah felt empowered, invigorated by witnessing a shift not just in herself, but in the others around her. As the night continued, she engaged with one person after another, relishing the myriad of connections forged through her art. Each conversation felt like a brushstroke on her trajectory, each interaction reinforcing her identity as an artist not just in name, but in essence. By the end of the evening, Sarah stood surrounded by a group of enthusiastic admirers pondering her inspirations, her experiences, her truth. In those moments, the artist within her thrived. Insecurities no longer haunted her. The gallery, once a crucible of anxiety, now reflected her triumph, a space filled with dialogue stemming from her vulnerabilities, resulting in empowerment. Her family's earlier expectations dimmed in the face of this revelation, overshadowed by the affirmation she had crafted through courage. As guests departed with eyes lit by inspiration, Sarah took a moment to absorb what she had accomplished. No longer did she wrestle with doubt. She had embraced her identity, demystifying the barriers of acceptance and renunciation alike. Standing alone momentarily, her heart swelled with pride. She wasn't just an artist. She was a woman who had unearthed her truth and let it ripple outward into the world. No longer would she shrink or dilute her authenticity. She stepped toward her canvas, allowing the final stroke of transformation to shimmer with an iridescent glow. Days of longing, struggle, and rebirth culminated into one tangible, irrefutable achievement, a true recognition of self. She had successfully exposed the person she was meant to be, and a comforting truth encased her heart. This was merely the beginning. A feeling of completeness washed over, as gratitude filled her for the winding path that had led to this moment. She had conquered her fears, proven her talent, and established herself as an artist of merit. This was Sarah. Recognized, resilient, and now ready to navigate an empowering journey unfettered by past shadows. As the sun dipped below the horizon, drawing a curtain of night across the gallery, she celebrated the dawn of a new chapter, one that promised clarity, creativity, and passion. This was her moment. And now, it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure more inspiring journeys like Sarah's reach those who need it most. Comment below your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey and where she might go next. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now to continue witnessing the transformative power of personal storytelling. Don't wait even one more second to share.